I'm going to start with the thing that I think is the most important today, which is Iran. So we got it seems like we might have an actual potential deal on the table, a potential deal to actually end the conflict. And the reason that I take this one a little bit more seriously than the last ones is because of all the coping and seething that all of the right wingers are doing. All of the hawks, they're going crazy. They're really mad about this deal, which means that there's, it has potential to actually be like a real one. Unless they're doing some major operation to try to trick the Iranians and have like all of our war hawks like Lindsey Graham and stuff come on TV just to pretend like they're really mad. But that seems like way too complicated for this administration. So, but then and then also with how much Israel is like seething about it, they seem to be really frustrated as well. So for all those reasons, I think that this deal may actually be real. My understanding is that it is going to largely be just an extension of the ceasefire with a with a gradual climb down when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, where both Iran and America will like pull back in terms of like controlling it and leaving it, getting it back open for commerce. And during the time period that they're going to be kind of drawing that down, they're also going to be negotiating on some sort of like nuclear, the nuclear issue, particularly like along with sanctions relief, I think is the general gist of it. So, but let's go ahead and let's start over with Fox News. So we're going to watch this video from Fox News. Maybe they'll give a little bit more details about it, but also we're going to be trying to get the gambit of the various interactions, and then I'll give my kind of analysis on it. But we're going to start with Fox News, then we're going to go to MS Now, see what the libs are thinking, and then we're going to go over to Al Jazeera to see what Israel is thinking. That's kind of the game plan here. So let's start here with Fox News. Let's see how they feel about it.
Ron Teichert, retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General and former F-15 pilot. Sir, thank you for joining us and giving us your time on this Memorial Day weekend. We greatly appreciate it. A deal clearly in the works, but the details not out yet. And the president making that clear in his latest Truth Social, where he said, our deal is the exact opposite, speaking about Obama's deal, but nobody has seen it or knows what it is. Your thoughts on where we stand right now, still with a lot of hope that we could see something significant in the coming week. Your thoughts?
Molly, there is hope, but there are two major concern areas that I know the president and his negotiating team are working through. Number one, Iran is notorious in negotiating in bad faith. In fact, the current ceasefire that we're in had one precondition, and that was a no strings attached opening of the strait.
Dude, this is such a fucking, this is the most projection I've ever seen in my entire life. Iran did open up the strait. Iran did open up the Strait of Hormuz, this particular issue that he's talking about, until America decided not to open up the Strait of Hormuz, not to open up the blockade, which I've talked about before was probably the biggest geostrategic blunder that I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. So America basically went back on their word. And so then Iran said, okay, well then no deal. We're going to also blockade the strait. We're not going to let you control it. Also, there's been reporting that Israel is the one that convinced America to make that huge geostrategic like blunder. So this is some wild rewriting of history that this guy is doing right now.
We're in had one precondition, and that was a no strings attached opening of the strait. And we've never seen that from Iran. And so we need to be very careful about their bad faith negotiations.
We did see it. It just America reneged on their promise, and then Iran went back to closing it again.
And then number two, people talk about the devil.
And by the way, I would trust Iran 100 times more than I would trust America on any sort of actual deal that is negotiated. America has proven time and time again that it does not give a shit about its deals. It tore up the JCPOA, which was the original deal that they had, right? And that was like a while ago, and then don't get me started on like all of the things that America has like gone back and forth on during the course of the war. I would trust Iran 100 times more than I would trust America in this particular circumstance.
Is in the details, but I say purgatory is in the phasing, and we need to make sure that we hold Iran accountable if they start backsliding, but also that we phase this deal so that Iran doesn't get the major benefits of a deal without giving up the things that are in our strategic interests.
Oh,
Why would Iran accept that? Answer that question. Why would Iran accept that? Like Iran is fine right now with exactly how things are. In fact, Iran would be fine even if you went back into a hot war. Even if you resume strikes, Iran would be fine with that. Like, why do you think you have any leverage here? Like, you don't have any leverage. Okay. Yeah, sure, buddy. Sure.
Oh, absolutely. Fabulous points. We also have Kayleigh McEnany, one of our key anchors here, releasing that she had spoken with an administration official that said essentially no dust, no deal. Now, we've known there's been a huge focus on the uranium enrichment part of this, the ultimate goal being that there is no nuclear weapon ever achieved by Iran. But part of that is also getting these nuclear materials out of the country, unusable, so they cannot be advanced and turned into something that could ultimately lead to tragedy. What do you make of that part of the effort?
Molly, in the intervening 60 days of this extended ceasefire, we would need to see Iran negotiating in good faith such that they do three primary things. Number one, they disavow any plans to have a nuclear program. Number two, they destroy all enrichment capability. And number three, that we see returned out of the country any enriched uranium.
That's never going to happen, dude. They're going, man. They're still such in like a fantasy world. If they think that's ever going to happen, that's ridiculous. They're not going to do that. They might bring their enrichment down to like 20%, like under the JCPOA, but they're not going to get rid of it out of the country. And they're definitely not going to get rid of their, what they call their like legal right to enrich uranium, which they do have that right under international law. So they're not going to do that. That's ridiculous.
Uranium. And unlike the Obama nuclear deal, we need a good deal where they give up permanent, irreversible, and verifiable concessions related to their nuclear program, again, before they get the major benefits of a deal going forward from us.
I want to get your thoughts on just the global community would like to see the Strait of Hormuz opened. There are a lot of folks that are like, let's get that done first, work out specifics on a deal later. What do you say to those entities? There are just a great many countries that would like to see things flowing again, the energy market stabilized, all of that. But that is a player in these negotiations as well.
It is. And the thing that I heard that most heartened me about the deal that's being negotiated is that the president and his team intend to see Iran open up the straits, no strings attached, and demine the straits. And only once we see them take those good faith actions will we start to lift the blockade and gradually relax sanctions. And I think if it's phased in that way,
I don't think that's how it's going to go. I think it'll be a mutual thing. I think that Iran will open up the strait, and America will also open up the strait. And then maybe at that point, I mean, I am still not even sure that Iran actually mined the strait. Honestly, I've heard them say that a million times. I haven't seen them give any actual evidence really of that. I don't know if I've heard Iran ever claim that they actually mined the strait. I think that like maybe Iran did claim it, but I don't know. I've just never seen any actual evidence of it. And it seems almost like a fucking psyop to me that they keep talking about the mining of the strait. Maybe they did. Maybe I'm wrong, but like I just feel like that just feels so like like a nothing part of this. So I don't know, maybe then, but then maybe after they both open it up for navigation, then maybe they'll demine it if they have to. But I think it'll be a much more like mutual back and forth. I think these people are still trying to live in a fantasy world.
Then now the strait is open and the world can rejoice. And only after we see that verifiably do they start to benefit from some of the sanction relief and the end of the blockade.
Yeah, we saw that there was the leader of Israel, Netanyahu, writing that Iran must eliminate the nuclear danger, something all the countries there in that area are very concerned about. We know the president also had a call with some of those nations like the UAE, the surrounding nations that have a lot of concerns about Iran and where.
It's such a nothing thing, man. It's a nothing, like the nuclear issue. I've talked about it so many times, but it is not a real problem. It is a manufactured problem. It is a problem that is specifically manufactured so that it can both be an imminent threat and we can wait as long as we want at the same time. Like it is like they just, it's a, it's just a yeah, it's like just manufactured so that like what, depending on what we want to do at the time, we can have whatever propaganda, like we completely decimated their nuclear stockpiles or they're weeks away from a bomb. It's not a real thing. It's not a real concern. Nobody has a real concern about it. And to all of them, I'd say Iran has something better than a nuclear weapon already. It has the Strait of Hormuz. It can control 20% of the world's oil. Which essentially means that they have just as much leverage in future, or they have just as much deterrence in future conflicts as having a nuclear weapon, which is all that matters, really. Like, what is the deterrence? Iran was never, even if Iran built a nuke, they were never going to use a nuke, right? They have shown themselves to be incredibly reserved, incredibly careful, and incredibly like I don't know, like credible when it comes to like their statements regarding these types of things. They never claimed that they wanted a nuke. They still haven't, even after all of this. And yeah, I think that's why I'm like, I think that they're probably just going to go back to not having a nuke and just like, I think that their strategy was right. I think their strategy was they actually didn't really need a nuke because they had the Strait of Hormuz. And I think they still do. So that's just, I think that that's a lot better for them, probably. So they'll probably be perfectly willing to negotiate on nuclear stuff, like get their nuclear enrichment down to 20%. I don't think they're going to do all that other bullshit that they talked about at the beginning, like sending the dust out of the country or anything, or getting rid of their like right to enrich or whatever. Like, I don't think they're going to do any of that, but I think they will probably get it back down to like 20%, which I think right now it's at like 60% enriched.
Some of those missiles have been going in recent months. What do you make of the role that these very important allies are playing as this deal goes forward?
Molly, I love the fact that the last 90 days or so have brought together the United States and Israel and our Gulf partners. And I think one of the major strategic wins, if ultimately we see a deal here, is that we have.
They were already all on the same side. What are you talking about? They were all on the America-Israeli side. All of the Gulf states were. If you think they were somehow opposed to us, that's just your Orientalism or whatever, not being able to understand geopolitics or whatever. All of these Gulf nations are firmly on the side of the U.S. and Israel. Maybe that'll change in the future. I'm not sure. Maybe people will start counterbalancing going forward with Iran just due to Iran's actual material capabilities that they were able to do affect during this war. But currently all of those Gulf states are firmly in the American Israeli camp.
Closer ties amongst those entities that will be extremely important militarily, diplomatically, and economically going forward. And I think their role during the last 90 days and going forward will be critical to make sure that we parlay these wins into strategic successes for the United States.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll see those wins laid out for us in the coming week or so. Greatly appreciate your insights, retired Brigadier General John Teichert. Thank you.
I was hoping to get a little bit more unhinged stuff. Let me see. Let's do one more short Fox News one. Maybe this one will be a little bit more unhinged. I'm just kind of guessing, to be honest. But yeah, let's do one more Fox News one. Let's see just what we'll get a little bit of a broader scope of what how the Republicans are feeling about this deal.
Welcome back. The U.S. is close to reaching an agreement this morning to end the war with Iran as Iranians are dealing with the economic fallout over Tehran's pursuit of nuclear weapons. Inflation in Iran is up over 73.5%.
I don't understand. Again, this is one of those things I don't get when they're supposed to use the word alleged or not, because like you need to qualify that. Their alleged pursuit of a nuclear weapon. They were not pursuing a nuclear weapon.
From last year, with food prices alone at 115%. Iran's currency has collapsed against the U.S. dollar, with it taking nearly 1.7 million riyals.
Is this the same dude?
$1 on
No,
the
it's a different
market.
dude.
Meanwhile, motorists in Iran are reportedly
They just all
facing
look the same.
hours-long gas lines due to fuel rationing and damage inflicted to oil and gas infrastructure during
cope. They just they're just this is just you're just coping if you think Iran is going to collapse any day now. I've been hearing Iran's going to collapse any day now for 20 years since we started doing sanctions, so it's all cope.
Operation Epic Fury. Despite the worsening economic conditions, Iran's regime has brutally cracked down on dissidents who were demanding freedom and basic human rights, executing at least 28 people on politically motivated charges since mid-March. That's according to Human Rights Watch. Joining me now with more is Cameron Consarinia, the chief of staff to the exiled Crown Prince. So great to have you here this morning. I want to get your
This is the Shah's Crown Prince, or the Shah's negotiating team or whatever, chief of staff. Okay, let's hear this. This I think might be unhinged. Let's hear what the Shah thinks about this.
Your reaction to the headlines that we're receiving that President Trump has been working into the evening and that he's near finalization on a peace deal with whatever is left of the Iranian regime. Obviously, this is very, very personal for you. And I know that you've been wanting to see a transition in Iran, an opportunity for the people to rise up and take their country back after 47 years of oppression. Do you think, with the framework of this deal, that day will come?
Well, Jackie, it's good to be with you. First of all, we don't know the specifics of the deal yet. I think before any of us jumps to conclusions, we need to see what is proposed, what are the specific components of it. And you say this is personal. That's true. It's not just personal for me. It's personal for 40,000 Iranians who were slaughtered on the evening of January 8th and 9th. It's
personal
my God. For their families. Today, on Memorial Day weekend, it's personal.
I think Iran has talked about it a million times, but their estimates are 3,000. I think they have 3,000, named people who were killed on during those protests. And they keep asking. They say, if you have more numbers, if you have more people that are dead, can you give us the names of them so that we can go investigate and verify those? And we never do. So that's why I'm I don't trust this 40,000 number at all. If they knew all of the names and stuff, they would release it. They're just making up numbers.
For the families of U.S. soldiers who, for the past 47 years, hundreds, if not thousands, have been murdered at the hands of the Islamic Republic, of its terrorist proxies. So this is something that, of course, all of us are watching closely. The people in the country with whom we speak on a daily basis, frankly, are nervous. They're nervous that their regime, which has held them hostage for 47 years, might be thrown a lifeline yet again. They came to the streets to fight for their freedom. They'll stop at nothing short of complete freedom. Iran, as President Trump has said himself many times, is a country with a long and a great history, 2,500 years.
Dude, if you wanted to support the protesters, you shouldn't have gone to war with them. It's the stupidest thing in the world. In the same way, we're going to probably go to war with Cuba next, now that Iran is no longer, out there defending the world from America's pedo-billionaires marauding from country to country trying to steal all their resources. Iran was the last line of defense against that, and now it's okay, well, now that we're done with Iran, we're going to start doing our wars of pedo aggression all over the world again. So next is probably going to be Cuba, and guess what? As soon as you start attacking Cuba, all of the anti-Cuba regime people inside of Cuba will instantly fall in line with the Cuban government in order to rally around the flag and, you know, try and protect their people. So it's just a bad strategy. If your strategy is like, if your goal is overthrowing the regime, you shouldn't bomb them. That's the advice I'd give you. If you're trying to do a coup or something that doesn't involve like a full military occupation and invasion, then you should probably not do an air campaign against them, because that's never worked before, and that's just dumb. You're dumb if you think that's going to work.
Of civilization. And so this criminal regime that's occupying the country does not represent the people of Iran, doesn't have the legitimacy to negotiate on their behalf.
Okay.
And even if
you're the fucking Shah's like chief of staff, dude. No, the Shah is not in any way representative of the Iranian public. Like they ousted the Shah. They literally had a popular revolution to oust the Shah from the government, because the Shah was just a Western puppet. For those unaware, the Shah is just like was installed as a Western puppet over Iran in order to help facilitate the America's pedo billionaires taking as much of their oil as they possibly can and skimming as much profits off of it as they can. They were ousted for that exact same reason. Like the Shah has no constituency, man. There is no constituency in Iran for the Shah. Nobody wants the Shah. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
A deal is reached, it will not allow the regime to survive for the one important reason that the people of Iran do not accept this regime. So we'll see what's in the specifics, what's in the details. But what I think is important to remember is that this regime will not abide by anything it agrees to. It's proven that for 47 years. They'll lie, they'll cheat, and they'll steal to get what they want, to stay in power, to continue to murder Iranians and, unfortunately, Americans.
Yeah, one thing the president has emphasized is that the nuclear program must stop, that the nuclear dust, the enriched uranium...
Okay, this is more the same. I wanted to get like some like Lindsey Graham style content of like people just like freaking the fuck out, but I couldn't really find anything from Fox News about that. So we're going to go on to MS now. So we just saw what the Republicans are thinking. We saw what the Shah was thinking. I'm sure everybody's so happy now to know what the fucking Shah, like I said, has no constituency whatsoever, what he was thinking. Let's go over to MS now. And let's see what the libs are thinking about this deal. And you know, we'll try and kind of like come to our conclusions based on that.
Breaking tonight, President Trump is pushing back against critics of his potential deal with Iran and taking a slightly different tone on the timeline for reaching an agreement. Writing on Truth Social this afternoon, quote, "If I make a deal with Iran, it will be a good and proper one, not like the one made by Obama. Nobody has seen it or knows what it is. It isn't even fully negotiated yet. So don't listen to the losers who are critical about something they know nothing about."
I think it's going to be worse than Obama's deal, to be honest. Why would it not be? Iran has way more leverage now than they ever had before. I think this is going to be worse than Obama's deal. Now, I think that he'll find ways to try to spin it or whatever. And even if it's obviously worse, like he'll just say it's better, and then half the, or most of the MAGA people will believe it. But I think it'll probably end up being worse. I think that they're going to get a lot. They're going to get sanctions relief, and I think they're going to get some sort of de facto control over the Strait of Hormuz. And then I also think that, I don't know if it'll be negotiated in their discussions, but I think that also they will get some form of like the bases that they destroyed are not going to be reoccupied by America or something along those lines as well, if I had to guess.
A senior administrator.
Oh, and then obviously, the big part, I guess I haven't even really talked about this yet, is I'll get into that in the next video, actually. I was going to talk about Lebanon, but let's see what the libs think first, and then we'll talk about Lebanon and Israel in the next video.
Administration official confirmed to MS Now that the timing of the full agreement is uncertain, but that it would not be signed today. Just last night, Trump suggested a deal with Iran was largely negotiated, triggering backlash and skepticism from some Republicans. Here's what Senator Thom Tillis said just this morning.
We were told about 11 weeks ago by Hegseth and the Department of Defense that they had obliterated Iran's defenses, and it was just a matter of time before we had the nuclear material. Now we're talking about a posture where we may accept the nuclear material remaining in Iran. How does that make sense?
It makes sense if you're not a fucking idiot. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. It makes sense if you've been watching this broadcast, because I told you from the beginning that that was all complete and total bullshit. Everything that Hegseth said is bullshit. He spews bullshit. He's like a bullshit fire hydrant where just bullshit after like streams of, high pressurized bullshit just spew out of it constantly. Like you should not believe anything that he says, and you should just use your fucking brain to understand the material conditions on the ground that are leading to this exact situation. And I got news for you, buddy, Mr. Tillis. If this isn't the time, if it doesn't go through, if we don't actually negotiate peace in this iteration, we're going to have to do it at some point in the future anyway, because Iran has all the cards, and it's like this is the point. This is the point where you are being brought back down to reality, that you have to that you have to deal with that disconnect in your head, that the propaganda that you've been like spewing, that potentially you've also been believing yourself, is not matching the outcomes that you would expect based on that propaganda. And as somebody who doesn't buy all that propaganda, all of this makes perfect sense to me, that Trump would potentially accept a deal like this, because this is what the material conditions on the ground are leaning towards. So my recommendation to you, Thom Tillis, and to everybody is to watch my show. And I'll tell you what's really happening, and you will be able to understand the world in a more comprehensive, better way, and not be so blindsided and surprised all the time by all of this obvious shit that's happening.
At all. Any agreement with Iran that isn't subject to ratification by Congress is going to be doomed to fail, just like the agreement we're trying to replace.
And joining us now to discuss is Peter Beinart, MS Now political analyst, professor, journalist, and author of the Beinart Notebook on Substack. It's great to have you back on the show, Peter.
Nice to be here.
So what does this shift in Trump's tone indicate to you? I mean, yesterday there was all this anticipation, kind of the drumbeat that there was a deal coming around the corner any minute now.
I would also, by the way, I don't want to be I want to be very clear. There is a chance that this doesn't go through. There is a chance that Trump is just lying, right? I've been watching some of the Iranian media say that they are prepared for this to be another ruse. They are prepared for America to start resuming strikes. There is real potential that this is just like another Trump pump fake. But the reason that I think that this is more serious is just because of how much the war hawks are freaking out, and particularly Israel as well.
And then Trump sort of releases this statement saying that we're going to take our time on this thing, and, don't listen to what the losers are telling you.
It indicates that Trump is totally screwed. I mean, he has two options: to accept a really bad deal, right, in which at best he solves a problem in the state of Hormuz that didn't exist before this war started, right, after spending what might have been, some estimating, $1 trillion in this war and hurting Americans and people all over the world.
My tax dollars.
Or he goes back to war, right, which the country desperately doesn't want. So what he has to do is convince people that it's actually a really good deal. And, but other people, unfortunately, live in the world of reality, right? So even some of these Republicans actually won't accept his crazy claim that this is a great deal, when obviously it's not going to be a good deal.
One of the things I was wondering about,
I think they'll accept it. Once it actually goes through, they will fall in line. Even the war hawks, they'll fall in line once they realize there's nothing they can do about it. I think that they'll accept it. It is the cult of Donald Trump.
And obviously it's not going to be a good deal.
One of the things I was wondering about was Israel in all of this, and I wanted to read for you a part of what Benny Gantz said about the Iran deal, or this reported Iran deal that kind of emerged yesterday. He wrote on X, "It is absolutely forbidden under any circumstance to accept the ceasefire in Lebanon as part of a deal with Iran. It is impossible to accept a situation in which, just as the Lebanese public begins to internalize that Hezbollah is harming it, Israel will allow it to become Lebanon's shield." And I bring that up because
yeah, so I mean, I'm going to talk a lot more about Israel after this, but this is the part that is the biggest spoiler, right? Is Israel. Israel wants this war to continue. Israel does not want, obviously, even if Israel was okay with putting a pause on Iran, the Iran front, they still want to continue stealing territory from Lebanon. Like that's probably their primary goal right now, honestly, is to try to steal as much territory from Lebanon as possible. They're not going to succeed at that, by the way. Hezbollah will push them out. However, Iran there's two things going on from Iran's perspective. Number one, it does have a somewhat of a commitment to Hezbollah. Hezbollah did go out on a limb by, engaging in this latest round of warfare. Israel was going to invade Lebanon regardless, whether Hezbollah shot that rocket or not at the beginning. However, they did shoot, rockets and join the front against Israel during the war. So to some extent, Iran has a obligation to Hezbollah that it needs to fulfill in order to maintain credibility with the organization. The other part, though, I forgot. I had another thing lined up in my head, but I can't remember now. But yeah, the Israel is definitely going to play the biggest role of spoiler. Oh, and I was going to say, but also Iran needs to be able to confirm that America is actually capable of reining in Israel. And obviously America is capable, but they're not willing to, or so far they haven't been willing to actually use their leverage to rein in Israel. It is still I've heard other people say it before. I think Hassan has said it before, but it's like, it is still a one call situation. Like Trump just has to make one call to Israel and they will be forced to stop. You just have to say no more weapons. You're not getting any more weapons until you stop. And that's all it takes. But he's been unwilling to do that, whether that's because they have pictures of him in a vault somewhere, or whether that's because America is just so devolved as a hegemony that it can't even control its client states anymore. I don't really know, honestly, what the real reason is. But it does feel like Iran needs that assurance. It needs that assurance that America is willing to actually rein in Israel, because if Israel is still just going to be destabilizing every country in the region 24/7, then there's no possibility of peace for Iran either. So they need to be shown that America is capable of reining in Israel. And that's probably going to be the biggest blow to Israel from a prestige perspective, is if they are like from the impact of this perspective, is that if they are forced to stop doing their normal genocides, against Lebanon. Now, if I were Iran, I would also include Gaza. I would include Gaza and the West Bank. And also I would say we're not going to accept anything unless Israel withdraws all 500,000 settlers from the West Bank. That would be my personal starting negotiating position if I were Iran. But yeah, if Israel does actually have to stop its territorial expansionist and is forced by Iran to exit Lebanon, as opposed to forced by Hezbollah to exit Lebanon, I think that would be a huge blow to Israel, and why they're kind of like freaking out about it.
From its position has been saying any deal would incorporate the region and certainly an end to the war.
Sorry, one last thing. And also, I said before, and I'll say it again, this does de facto make Iran the regional hegemon. Israel can do nothing against Iran. Iran is more capable, has more military power, like is able to has more, not just military power. I'd say they're like relatively equal in terms of actual military capabilities. I mean, obviously Israel has America, which does most of its dirty work against Iran, but without America, they would be like relatively equal, I think, in terms of like military might. But Iran has something way more important, and that is the Strait of Hormuz. And because Iran has that choke point totally under its control, Israel, like it has more geopolitical strategic power and deterrence than Israel does.
War between Israel and Lebanon. And we've seen the president in the past, as far back as April 18th, when the first kind of ceasefire was emerging, where he called on Israel not to attack Lebanon, and yet there still has been strikes there. And now Benny Gantz, and I'm sure the Israeli prime minister is also behind the scenes sharing those same views, that Israel cannot be restricted in its ability to operate in the region. How much do you think of what Israel might do as a potential to derail what Donald Trump is trying to achieve with Iran?
I mean, the United States has the leverage over Israel to ensure that Israel complies with a ceasefire in Lebanon. The problem politically for Donald Trump is that that would be costly, right? Again, he has no good options here, right? To allow Israel to basically continue the war.
It wouldn't be costly politically. No. It wouldn't be costly at all. Most of his base is, honestly, most of I would say like the MAGA, at least young portion. I'd say, okay, let's put it this way. I'd say like 50% of his base is on board for like, fuck Israel o'clock, like stop influencing our politics sort of shit. The other half are just like war hawks and like boomers who are going to just be pissed off anyway, just for like not like if you're a part of like the neocons, like the neocon warhawks, then you're going to be pissed off at this regardless whether Israel is a part of it or not. So I don't think politically there's any problem with him actually disciplining Israel, which means that it's something else, right? That's why I'm saying it's either they got pictures of him in a vault somewhere, or he is just like somewhat ideologically committed to this, or he is being influenced by his advisors to think that this would be a bad or like to try and stop him from doing this. I don't know exactly what it is, but I don't think politically this would be like forcing Israel's hand here. In fact, I think he would get a boost. I think that people would like even the MAGA people would like if he disciplined Israel for once, because a lot of the MAGA people think it's humiliating for America to be, like on a fucking leash being dog walked by Israel. Like, I mean, that's how a lot of them think. So I think a lot of them would be like very happy that if he did that.
Or after the U.S. to stop makes him look weak and maybe would lead the Iranians not to go for the deal at all. But putting the kind of real pressure on Israel to ensure that they wouldn't actually then hurts him.
By the way, I think that I'm just going to count this video as my Israel video because I've talked a lot about Israel already in this one. So this will be the last video related to Iran that we're going to watch.
Supporters of Israel in his own party. So that's the very difficult choice that he faces. But I mean, we need to remember that the United States could stop Israel if it wants to. The question is, does the United States want to?
Well, does the United States want to is an excellent question. And if you look at what the oil markets are doing, which are a pretty good indicator of the political pressures that Donald Trump faces, they are down, actually. Prices are down. West Texas Intermediate crude is about down almost 5% at $92 a barrel. Brent is down a little over 1%, 1.5% to $99 a barrel. To what extent do you think Donald Trump is feeling the heat to wrap this up and move on and settle this war because of the political blowback that can be expected from still very high oil prices translating to high gas prices?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Trump's better option politically would be to make a bad deal and just hope that he can basically change the subject until people are thinking about other things and maybe some of the economic pain eases over the summer. But it is really interesting to see how on this issue,
it was always going to be either bad deal now or bad deal later. That's just what the material conditions on the ground were going to lead to, or like from America's perspective. There was no way to get some sort of like capitulation from Iran. The only potential way would have been a full-scale ground invasion, like a full-scale war, a draft, hundreds of thousands of troops, tens of thousands dead, like that sort of situation. And I don't think that we had the political will to do something along those lines. So this was always probably going to be the end result, is just a bad, quote unquote, bad deal for America.
Issue of Iran and on foreign policy, you've consistently seen Republican senators be a little bit more willing to break with Trump than on anything else. I mean, they're literally more willing to break with Trump on being hawkish on Iran than they are in, like, whether we should have a free election.
Or Epstein files.
Or the Epstein files, yeah. And this is a pattern. It goes back to his first term, too. That's, for whatever reason, that's where people feel a little emboldened.
So why do you think that is?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it's partly maybe because they feel that this has always been an issue on which they feel a little bit less like they have to respond to public opinion. And I think there's especially in the Senate, I think more than in the House, there are people who've been there for a very, very long time. And they've been told for decades and decades that basically we're hewing to this ultra hawkish line on Iran. And it's a little bit hard to basically just do this complete whiplash and then basically accept a deal, which is worse than Obama's deal, when you claim that basically that was
okay. The real reason is that Donald Trump's this is a silly thing to me, I guess, that they're talking about here. The reason that that the hawks and stuff are willing to go against Trump on this particular issue, but not go against Trump when it comes to Epstein or democracy or whatever, is because those things are not incompatible with the Republican project. Like the Epstein files is in fact a core part of, I would say, the Republican project. I would say like the capitalist project or whatever that sits on top of both parties, like the capitalist corporate wing of the party. Like the Epstein stuff is all very core to our system of government. Our government needs a cabal of pedophiles on top in order to function, apparently. Like that's what we learned from the Epstein files is our government, our elites, our world economy, how we've set up and organized the world, our hegemony, all depends on a cabal of pedophiles. Unfortunately, that's just the way it has to be, apparently. Like, so they don't care about that because that doesn't that isn't contrary to their ideas of like the project of America. Same with like democracy. Like they don't care about democracy. They like democracy is only so good as it is a propaganda tool in their eyes. They don't care about democracy. And so it's not oppositional to their project as like trying to accumulate as much wealth into as few of hands as possible, right? But Iran, a situation where America is incapable of defeating militarily Iran and taking all of its resources for itself, that is oppositional to the project of America of taking, like I said, as much global wealth and putting it into as few of hands as possible. Like in the end, I would say that is like the primary project of America. The government of America is just a tool to be used by the global capitalists in order to take as much wealth as possible and put it into as few hands as possible. And America losing this war is it makes it impossible, or like it deals a significant blow because the government, like I said, the government and the army of America is supposed to be used by these capitalists in order to coerce money and resources from other regions. And so this blow is actually like a negative for those interests. And so for that exact reason, these people, these war hawks or whatever, are going to go against him because this time it actually impacts like what the plan, like what they want out of the American system, right? Like that's the reason. It's if you can, this is why you need to analyze things from like a not necessarily like Democrat versus Republican issue, but as a capitalist billionaires versus like workers issue, because that's the only way that you'll be able to like really analyze these and come to like the easy obvious conclusions as to why they like to these types of questions and stuff.
The worst deal in human history.
Speaking of which, why do you think Trump is so obsessed with Obama and the JCPOA? Because you would think that given the fact that he may well end up in a place that is far worse than that deal, that maybe he would stop mentioning it all the time, just out of the hope that like the American public then wouldn't like do a side by side and be like, wait a minute, this wasn't a good idea, but he keeps bringing it up.
Right. Well, you know, Donald Trump has been obsessed with Barack Obama for a long time, I think for some reasons that we can speculate, but probably are pretty obvious. But he also has a tendency to trash all of his predecessors, right? And so I think, again, it's a fascinating moment to see.
He's petty. He's petty. That's it. He has a personal grievance against Obama. That is why. And so he is a petty little bitch, and he is going to, and that's what, like, a petty narcissistic bitch, and that's like what he does is he just trashes them, even if it's not necessarily good from like a messaging perspective. He's going to do it, and honestly I don't think it really matters that much from messaging perspective, because his base is going to buy his shit no matter what it smells like. So
see a guy who fundamentally believes he doesn't have to operate in reality, basically try to actually figure out how he can deal with a situation in which reality has him cornered. And unfortunately, we're all paying the price for this, right? Because lots of people predicted exactly this, and Trump didn't listen to them.
So now with the military option off the table, it seems for now, because ultimately the U.S. wanted to go, and certainly with some hawks, for a full regime operation in Iran, that is now unrealistic, given where we are in the global economy. And you keep saying the president has no good options, I should say. Yeah. Does this mean that the United States militarily cannot resort to...
Yeah, never had the options to. We need to be clear. America was unable to do this, but I still want to be absolutely clear for these liberals out here to, like, if Democrats were in charge of this war, it would have been the exact same result. Iran just strategically outmaneuvered us, what has been planning for this exact inevitability. In their eyes, it was inevitable that America was one day going to try to militarily control, take over Iran, right? To militarily take it down. And Iran planned for the past 30 years or whatever to be able to resist this in an asymmetric way. And America did not do what it would have needed to do to be able to go against that. In order to facilitate better, I don't know, being able to compete in this sort of asymmetric drone warfare. It did not do any of the things that it would have needed to do. I don't know if it ever would have been really possible, to be honest, at this point for America to do this, even if America, I don't know, moved to a state capitalist system where it was like China, where it was actually able to produce cheap, effective missiles and drones, and ways to compete in an asymmetric battle that depends entirely on production. I think that Iran's capabilities with the Strait of Hormuz would have probably led to this outcome no matter what, even if America did also prepare for this sort of war for a long period of time. But yeah, it was always going to end up this way. Don't let anybody say differently. No, whether it was Democrats or Republicans in charge, it would have ended the same.
Does this mean that the United States militarily cannot resort to bombing Iran because of the fact that it's proven ineffective in trying to collapse the regime or forcing its hand?
I mean, I think that it's the politics that are constraining, right? Because, what is it, 30% of Americans support the war. Imagine if you went back into it, the number might even sink further. Right. I would like to think that the Trump people are also have some sense of the huge geopolitical costs. I mean, the geopolitical costs are just massive. I mean, just look at that.
Okay, it is there is political constraints. There are. That is a correct analysis. But I think that they want to refuse to admit that there was never that America would be incapable of doing this militarily. Even if America had, let's say that Trump did a full Iraq-style propaganda tour before going into this, a 1-year-long propaganda tour, going on every station saying, we need to do this, this is why we need to do this, and the American people need to get on board for this. And let's say he whipped up a patriotic fervor that got 90% of the public on board, even liberals. I mean, I know this is fantasy world, right? This is not I don't think that would ever really happen, because I don't think liberals ever would have come on board, or at least majority of liberals. I'm sure there would have been hawkish liberals that obviously would, but let's say he did all that and it started out very popular. Even then, America would not have been able to influence Iran with military might, because air campaigns, number one, have never changed a regime. You can't change a regime with air power alone. So that would have meant doing a ground invasion. And then if we did a ground invasion, just due to Iran's geography, how difficult it would be, it would take hundreds of thousands of troops, potentially a draft, and tens of thousands of deaths, at least to even just like get somewhat take over a portion of Iran, and at that point, there's where like I think the real actual political, like I don't think people would be able to politically support that for very long. And also we're living in like fantasy world where like I don't think liberals ever would have gotten on board that much. So yeah.
That trip he went to China, how much the power balance has shifted, in part because of the war. We basically have pulled our interceptors out of Asia, right? And we've also had huge damage to our military bases and sustained massive economic costs and alienated huge numbers of people around the world. Like, I would hope that that also influences him.
Well, hopefully we'll see if it does.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go, people. I talked about everything I really wanted to talk about when it comes to Iran, I think. Israel will try to spoil this. We'll see if America is capable of reining in Israel. It really kind of feels like we're not at this point, or like not willing to. But that's going to be a key sticking point.